He was once the gunslinger who ruled Sundays, a quarterback whose throws bent logic, whose toughness rewrote expectations, and whose streak of consecutive starts remains one of the most unbreakable achievements in all of professional sports. Yet today, when discussions circle around the greatest passers ever, his name drifts further from the spotlight, overshadowed by modern aerial giants and the new era of quarterback play. This is the story of Brett Favre, a legend who climbed to the height of American football, held records that seemed untouchable, and delivered some of the most unforgettable moments the sport has ever seen. But it's also the story of how time, new superstars, controversies, and the rapid evolution of the NFL quietly pushed one of football's most iconic figures out of the center of the conversation. To understand Favre is to understand a player who played with reckless brilliance, unmatched durability, and a heart that beat in rhythm with small-town America. He was not polished, he was not perfect, but he was real, and his rise, fall, and lasting imprint reveal more than just statistics. They reveal what it means to chase greatness, to stumble, to rise again, and to leave behind a legacy that refuses to disappear, no matter how the years reshape the record books. Long before his name echoed across packed stadiums, Brett Favre was just a kid growing up in the humid, pine-lined corners of Kiln, Mississippi, a small southern town where life moves slowly and football wasn't just a pastime, but a language. His family lived modestly. His father, Brett Favre, a high school coach with a firm voice and an even firmer set of expectations, believed toughness wasn't taught in books, but forged in heat, sweat, and discipline. His mother, Bonita, a quiet anchor of the family, supported her sons through long nights of practice in school. For Brett, childhood wasn't glamorous. It was built on dirt fields, homemade obstacles, and a fierce sibling rivalry with his brothers. The Favre boys didn't learn football through camps or elite trainers. They learned it the hard way, with Irvin firing passes at them until their hands stung, demanding they stand tall even after getting knocked down. Every bruise was a lesson, every mistake, a reminder. Resilience mattered more than style, but football wasn't his only challenge. The rural environment offered few shortcuts, and academic struggles shadowed him through school. Teachers often saw a restless kid who preferred the open field over textbooks. Yet behind that restlessness was a raw instinct, a natural quarterback's mind that saw plays in motion long before the snap. Favre's early life wasn't a story of privilege or early stardom. It was the story of a boy shaped by hard work, a demanding father, and a tight-knit community that valued grit over talent. Those fields in Mississippi didn't just teach him how to throw. They taught him how to endure, a lesson that would later define his entire career. When Brett Favre left Kiln for the University of Southern Mississippi, he wasn't the golden prospect scouts fought over. He arrived as an afterthought, a strong arm with little polish, a backup quarterback expected to sit quietly behind older players. But Favre never fit the mold of someone who waited patiently. From the moment he stepped onto campus, he pushed, competed, and clawed for every rep, refusing to let his chance slip by. What changed everything was a single moment. Early in his freshman season, with Southern Miss struggling, the coaching staff threw him into a game almost out of desperation. Favre didn't hesitate. He attacked, he improvised. He played the only way he knew how, with boldness bordering on recklessness. And against every prediction, he led a comeback that stunned both his teammates and the coaching staff. The backup kid from Kiln had suddenly become the heartbeat of the team, but the path was far from smooth. Before his senior year, Favre survived a near-fatal car accident that left him with internal injuries and months of uncertainty. Doctors doubted he would ever play again. Favre disagreed. With a mix of raw stubbornness and remarkable pain tolerance, he returned to the field only weeks later, not just to play, but to win. One of his most memorable victories came shortly after the accident, defeating a heavily favored Alabama team, a performance that caught the eye of professional scouts who had previously overlooked him. By the time the 1991 NFL draft arrived, Favre had transformed from a fringe college quarterback into an intriguing talent with one of the league's strongest arms. The Atlanta Falcons selected him in the second round, but even then he wasn't fully believed in. He spent most of his rookie year on the bench, throwing only 4 passes, 2 of them intercepted, 1 returned for a touchdown. His time in Atlanta ended as abruptly as it started, yet destiny had other plans. A struggling franchise in Green Bay saw something Atlanta didn't, setting the stage for one of the most important trades in NFL history. What Atlanta dismissed, Green Bay desperately needed: a spark. In 1992, Packers general manager Ron Wolf traded a first-round pick for Brett Favre, a bold move many analysts mocked. Favre had barely played, had thrown more interceptions than completions, and carried the reputation of being undisciplined. But Wolf trusted his instincts. He believed Favre's arm talent was something you couldn't teach, and his competitiveness was something you couldn't coach out. Favre arrived in Green Bay as a backup once again, and once again, fate intervened. In Week 3, starter Don Majkowski went down with an ankle injury, and Favre was pushed onto the field. What happened next became folklore. His first throws were wild. The crowd groaned. Coaches paced nervously. But then Favre found his rhythm. He led a relentless comeback drive, firing a game-winning touchdown with seconds remaining. It wasn't a perfect performance, far from it, but it revealed something undeniable. The kid had fire. The locker room felt it. Lambeau Field felt it. And suddenly the entire league felt it. From that moment, Favre seized the starting job and refused to let it go. Over the next 4 seasons, his reputation exploded. He became known for impossible throws, crossbody lasers, off-balance heaves, passes squeezed through microscopic windows. Every game felt unpredictable, chaotic, electric. He wasn't just playing quarterback, he was redefining it. By 1995, 1996, and 1997, Favre did what no quarterback before or since has done. He won 3 straight MVP awards. The Packers evolved from a struggling franchise into a powerhouse, powered by Favre's fearlessness and head coach Mike Holmgren's discipline system. Their offense became a storm, fast, sharp, and overwhelming. The true breakthrough came in the 1996 season. Favre led Green Bay to the league's best record, dominated the playoffs, and marched into Super Bowl XXIX, where he delivered iconic moments: a long bomb to Andre Rison, a rushing touchdown with his helmet raised high in triumph. It was the coronation of a new NFL king. Favre wasn't just rising, he was erupting. By the late 1990s, Brett Favre was more than a star. He was the face of the NFL. Every Sunday, millions tuned in, not just to watch the Packers, but to watch him. Because with Favre, anything could happen. A 70-yard strike off his back foot, a miraculous escape from a collapsing pocket, a risky throw that somehow threaded through 3 defenders. He played quarterback with the joy of a backyard kid and the courage of a prize fighter. And during his peak years, that combination made him nearly unstoppable. After bringing a Lombardi trophy back to Green Bay in the 1996 season, Favre returned the following year with even sharper command of the offense. He led the Packers to another Super Bowl appearance and continued stamping his name across the record books. By 1997, his 3rd consecutive MVP award cemented a truth the league could no longer deny. This was his era. The numbers were staggering. Season after season, he hovered near the top in passing yards, touchdowns, and QBR. But statistics alone never fully captured what made Favre different. What truly defined him was durability, a toughness that bordered on myth. He started every single game, no matter the pain, the conditions, or the stakes. Snowstorms, broken thumb, sprained ankle, deep bruises, nothing forced him off the field. His consecutive start streak, stretching eventually to 297 games, became one of the most revered feats in NFL history. It wasn't talent, it wasn't luck, it was will. But the peak of Favre's career wasn't only about heroics, it was also about connection. The chemistry he built with receivers like Sterling Sharp, Antonio Freeman, and Donald Driver. Their timing felt almost telepathic. When Favre rolled out and pointed downfield, Lambeau Field knew something spectacular was coming. What elevated him even further were the moments nobody could predict. Like the Monday night game in 2003, played just hours after the passing of his father. Many expected him to sit out. Instead, Favre took the field and delivered one of the most remarkable performances of his career. 399 yards and 4 touchdowns. Each throw carried a mix of grief, love, and raw emotion. That night wasn't just football, it was humanity on display, and fans who watched it still talk about it as if it happened yesterday. Coaches respected him, opponents feared him, teammates loved him. They admired how he celebrated touchdowns like a rookie, how he joked on the sideline, how he played with an unpolished authenticity rarely seen in professional sports. He wasn't perfect, and that was the point. His greatness felt accessible, earned through effort, not elegance. During these dominant years, Favre shaped Green Bay's identity. He revived a franchise that had spent decades in mediocrity and restored it to the top of the league. More importantly, he made the NFL feel unpredictable, thrilling, and alive. Even legends face storms. And for Brett Favre, the climb to greatness came with shadows that shaped, tested, and at times nearly broke him. For all the magic he produced on Sundays, there were chapters marked by pain, loss, and difficult decisions. Moments that reminded the world that behind the record stood a human being trying to navigate pressures few could imagine. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Favre's relentless style of play came at a price. Injuries piled up, his body absorbed punishment year after year, and the emotional weight of carrying a franchise began to show. One of the deepest struggles he faced was his battle with painkillers, a dependency that developed as he tried to push through injuries to maintain his unmatched streak. Favre confronted the issue publicly, entered treatment, and fought his way back with a determination that mirrored how he fought defensive lines. It wasn't a triumphant moment, but it was an honest one. And honesty, in many ways, was part of what drew people to him. Then came the heartbreaks on the field, crushing playoff losses, especially the NFC Championship defeats, etched scars. The 2007 overtime interception against the New York Giants, a throw that drifted in the icy Lambeau air, ended what many thought might be his final chance at another Super Bowl. It was the kind of moment that lingered, replayed endlessly by critics and fans alike. Off the field, the most personal blow arrived with the sudden passing of his father, Irvin, in 2003. The man who had shaped him, challenged him, and coached him through life was gone without warning. That loss hit Favre harder than any sack. Yet somehow, through grief that could have silenced him, he stepped onto the field the very next night and delivered a performance that felt almost spiritual. A tribute written in spirals and touchdowns. These challenges didn't define his career, but they revealed the inner battle behind the public triumphs. The humanity beneath the helmet. Favre's journey wasn't smooth or polished. It was raw, imperfect, and deeply real. And that, in its own way, made his story resonate far beyond the sport. When the dust settled on Brett Favre's career, the numbers alone were enough to fill chapters of NFL history. By the time he stepped away from the game for the final time, he had amassed more than 71,000 passing yards, over 500 touchdowns, 3 MVP awards, 11 Pro Bowl selections, and one of the most iconic streaks in sports, 297 consecutive starts. For nearly 2 decades, he stood atop categories that once seemed unbreakable. Many of those marks have since been surpassed, a natural consequence of evolving offenses in a changing league. But their impact remains unmistakable. Yet statistics can only tell part of the story. Favre's legacy is less about record books and more about the emotional connection he formed with the sport itself. He embodied a style of play that was both flawed and fearless. A quarterback who might throw a baffling interception one moment, then deliver a miracle on the very next drive. That unpredictability, that refusal to conform to caution, became his signature. You didn't watch Favre for efficiency, you watched him for possibility. For fans in Green Bay, he resurrected a franchise that had been searching for its identity since the Lombardi years. He made Lambeau Field electric again. He gave the Packers relevance, pride, and a sense of belonging in the modern NFL. For the league, he helped push football deeper into American culture. His joy, charisma, and backyard-in-the-snow bravado made him one of the most recognizable athletes of his generation. Favre's legacy also lives in the quarterbacks who came after him, young players who watched him turn broken plays into highlight reels. Those who learned that leadership wasn't only about composure, but about authenticity, about showing passion, toughness, and vulnerability. His influence stretches from locker rooms to film rooms, where coaches still reference his ability to play with instinct, where young quarterbacks study how he extended plays no one else could. But perhaps the greatest testament to his legacy is the debate that still surrounds him. Greatness, after all, isn't measured by unanimous agreement. It's measured by impact. And Favre's impact is undeniable. He inspired, he frustrated, he dazzled, he endured. As time passed and as the spotlight shifted to new superstars, his name gradually slipped from the center of modern conversations about the greatest quarterbacks ever. Not because he stopped being great, but because the game continued to evolve. New eras brought new numbers, new narratives, and new faces. And yet, when you peel back the layers of statistics and trends, when you look at what makes a player unforgettable, Favre remains carved deeply into the heart of NFL history. He wasn't perfect, he wasn't polished, but he was unforgettable. And in a sport built on heart, grit, and drama, that kind of legacy never truly fades. In the end, Brett Favre's story is not simply about touchdowns, trophies, or records. It's about a boy from a quiet Mississippi town who transformed the NFL through sheer will, raw passion, and a refusal to back down from any challenge. His greatness was never defined by perfection. It was defined by the moments he stood back up, after injuries, after losses, after doubts, and continued to play with the same fearless spirit he learned on those dusty childhood fields. Time may have pushed his name further from the heated debates of today's highlight-driven era, but legacy isn't measured by trending conversations. It's measured by the hearts moved, the memories burned into stadium lights, and the echoes left behind long after the crowd goes home. Favre gave the sport some of its most unforgettable moments. And even as new stars rise, the imprint he left on the game, and on millions of fans, remains unmistakably his. So as the final chapter closes, we return to the truth that started this story. Some legends aren't forgotten because their numbers are still on top. They're remembered because they played with a soul that statistics can't capture. If you enjoyed this journey, feel free to share your own memories of watching Brett Favre. Which moment defined him for you? I'd love to hear it. And if you want more stories like this, make sure to check out our next deep dive into another hidden legend of the gridiron.